Hi all and welcome to Liquid Earth. I'm Age, and in this tutorial we're going to show you how to edit your photos with a sunset effect and change the colours. So with this image, let's first of all go into our light. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a little preset that we can apply to all our photos, and then we can make some further adjustments after we've applied that preset. So let's change the highlights and move the highlights down. For a lot of sunset images, you'll find there's some very bright areas in your image, and you can see what happens when we move this slider down. It pulls back some of the detail in those lighter areas. So let's come down to -51. I'm going to leave the shadows where they are at the moment, and then we're going to go into our colour. We're going to add some vibrance to the image, and we're going to add some saturation. Next, in our effects, we're going to pull the clarity up. Now see what the clarity does if I pull it all the way over. And you can remove clarity, which makes the image a little softer if you move it to the left. But we're going to move this up to around about +23. Dehaze is for removing fog and haze, as it suggests, but it gives you some good effects on the sky in lots of images, and you can see you can really deepen those colours with the dehaze. Again, you can add haze if you put it over to the left. We're going to pull the dehaze up just slightly, so let's say +11 for that. And then we're going to go to our sharpening tool. We're going to increase the sharpening to 64, and then we're going to mask the sharpening off. So what the masking does is it avoids sharpening on those smoother areas the more you pull the masking to the right. So for around about 60, it's not going to sharpen the areas where there's no contrast, like the sky, which we don't want to sharpen, but all of the edges it will. Next up, let's go back into our details, press the split toning, and this is where we're going to add the colour. So with the split toning, it allows you to adjust the colours in the highlights and shadows separately from each other. So let's start with the highlights to show you what I mean. If we pull the highlights up into the oranges, the further you push up, the more saturation you get, and left and right changes the hue. So we'll start with around about 50, and we'll go into our oranges, so let's say around about 30 or so. It doesn't have to be exact. And for the shadows, we'll do a similar 30 on the hue, but we'll only pull the saturation up to about +16 and press done. So that's our starting point. Now we'll save that as a preset. Press the circle icon with the little 3 dots, that's your options. Choose create preset. Give your preset a name, and then if you scroll up you can see these are the parameters that are automatically being saved into that preset. Make sure they're ticked. Then press the user presets. You can either keep it there or create a new preset group at the bottom. That allows you to create another folder. Give that a name and press the tick, and tick again. Now we've saved the preset, what we can do is we can scroll to another image, press our little preset icon, which is the 2 circles, use the drop down and navigate to where you saved those presets. Here we are. Click on the sunset preset and you've applied straight away. Press the tick to accept that change, and then you can go back into your light and add further adjustments. So let's say we want to add some more contrast to this image. Let's go to our details, into our mix, go to our yellows, and we'll move the yellow hue towards the orange. See what this is doing here. That's done. Let's go to our details, split toning, and we'll increase the saturation even more so. And we've made some further adjustments. Click and hold, you'll see the before and the after. Let's apply it on this image. So back into our presets, we already have them highlighted here. And this time we'll accept and go back into our details, split toning, and we'll change the highlights into red. And we'll do the same for the shadows. Press done, and then you can see the before and the after. Okay, let's try this one. So let's apply that preset again first of all. Accept that by pressing the tick. Back into our details and split toning, and this time we'll add a purple hue. Let's go a bit further, and we'll do the same in the shadows, and press done, and there you go, you've got the before and the after. This one's already quite saturated, but let's say we want to change the colour. We've got red there, let's change this one to purple as well. So we'll apply that preset first of all, go to our details, split toning, and move the shadows and the saturation into purple, and there you completely change the colour cast of that image. Now this one's quite interesting because it's overexposed, so let's start fresh on this one. Let's go into our light, we'll pull back the exposure, create a bit of detail here. We definitely want to pull those whites down a little bit, and certainly the highlights. Let's get some more detail in those highlight areas, pull that all the way down. And in the colour, add some vibrance, a tad of saturation. Back into the details, we want some clarity, a little bit of dehaze, and go to our split toning, and let's choose what colour. So let's say we want an orange again in this one. Let's pull our saturation quite high on this one, and let's change the shadows, and we'll choose a different colour. So we'll have blue in the shadows, and you can see we've got orange in the highlights. Let's tweak that a little bit, and press done, and then press and hold the image. Let's see the full size, before and after. How quick was that for a great transformation? Let's start on this one. So again, I'm going to go into our light, pull our highlights down so that we get more detail from the sun. Maybe bring the shadows up a tad here. And on the colour, again, we want to add some vibrance to the colour. Bit of clarity, and into our split toning again. Let's do a red into the highlights, and let's have a blue into these shadows. And press done. And then you've got the before and after. Now this image here is really interesting because it's completely underexposed and we've got nothing showing in the foreground. Let's say we want to adjust that and make this picture a little bit better. Press the light. The first thing we want to do here really is pull them shadows up because there is no shadow showing. Let's increase our exposure so we get more shadows. That's looking better already. Let's take our highlights down to bring some more details into the light areas of the sky, and then press our colour, add some vibrance and saturation to the image, and into details, bit of clarity, and straight into our split toning. And let's again increase those oranges in the shadows and even more so in the highlights. Press done, and there we have it. We've transformed this image into this one in a few easy steps. Now another image that hasn't really got a lot of colour in it. This is a sunrise, but there's absolutely no cloud and it's not giving us any detail. So let's change this up. Let's pull the highlights down, increase the shadows just a tad, go into our colour, add some vibrance to that image and some saturation. Let's go into our colour mix this time. Now we're in the yellows, let's move the yellows into a more orange hue. Look what happens when we move this hue over. So from yellow to orange, and you can do that with all of the colours there. Press done, into our details, add some clarity, maybe I'll put a vignette on this one. Look what happens with the vignette, you can darken down those corners, or if you pull to the right you can lighten them up. And split toning, let's add some red to this image. Maybe not so much in the shadows, let's try plus 30, and let's pump up the highlights to plus 58. Look what we've created on that image. Now this one's a bit more technical because we have people in this image, so if we was to change the highlights and the shadows, you can see the people are going to be affected quite severely on this, and that's perhaps not what we want. So let's make sure that we're starting with a reset image. To reset any image, press this little icon here. Let's reset that. So we're starting with the image fresh. So what we're going to do for this one is we're going to create a graduated filter. Now this is only available in the paid version of Lightroom, so if you don't have the paid version you won't be able to get these options, but let's show you what it's able to do. If we press that icon there and press the plus button, we can select from 3 options. We've got our brush tool, our radial filter and our gradient filter. Let's click the gradient filter, and now what we need to do is drag the image from top to bottom, and you can stop wherever you like, and you can see it graduates that effect from the top to bottom. This is just an overlay to show you the graduation. This is not the image itself here. On the left hand side you've got some options. We'll touch those in just a minute, but first of all, now that we've applied the graduated filter, let's press the light button here, and you've got various tools down this right hand side. Now let's change the colour. So in this colour mix, you can see now wherever we move it, we get that colour tint on the image. And if we again increase that, increases the colour saturation. And if we move it down, it decreases the saturation. Now, very much like the split toning, only this is affecting the whole of the image. So for this, let's add lots of vibrance, saturation into the image. We'll go 100% for instance here. Now that's all very well, but the problem we've got now is that the people are showing far too red. So now what we need to do is press the erase button. Now if I click and drag here, let's show you what the tools we've got. We've got the size, so we can change the size. This is the brush size here. Let's keep that fairly small. We've got the feather. I'm going to reduce the feather on this one to around about 30 or so. And then we've got the flow. If we was to reduce the flow, then you would have to go over the image several times to get to 100%. But let's keep that on 100%. And now what we do is we literally draw on the image. You can see there, if you take your time, you can actually draw around the faces or the skin or whatever. I'm just being rough here, but you can take more time. I don't really want to go over too much into the sky area because it will show. I'm going to pinch out on the image, back in again, just so that I can cover off some of these other skin areas here. Again, I'm only doing this very roughly, as you can see, just to give you an idea. And now that we've erased that, press the tick, double click, and you can see what's happened there. So we've erased the areas of colour from that gradient filter. But now let's say we still want to change those skin tones a little bit. Let's press the plus, and this time we're going to use the brush. Let's change our parameters accordingly. Oh, that's fine. And this time we're going to highlight these faces. Again, I'm doing this very rough, guys. You want to take a little bit of time over this. Okay, let's just do this area here. And this time we're going to go to our colour and we're going to desaturate those reds. Then go to our light and let's increase the exposure. And press the tick when we're done, double click, and you can see very quickly what we've done. Now, I didn't take my time, so it's very, very rough, but if you take your time on there, you can make the image look absolutely fabulous. Okay, let's try another one. Let's do this one. Again, we'll start from scratch. Start with our light, pull the highlights down just a tad, and we don't want to increase the shadows here because we want the two people in complete silhouette. So let's double click and you can reset the shadows back to 0. Let's add a little bit more vibrance, but not too much because it's already quite a vibrant image. Go to our detail and let's just change the colour. Maybe we'll have a purple one in the shadows and the highlights on this one. And press done. Okay, let's do this one here. This time we're going to add 2 different colours. So perhaps we'll start off with our preset. Go into our details and now our split toning. Now we've got orange, let's change that to more of a red into the highlights, but this time let's put blue into the shadows. You can see what happens when I increase this slider here into the blues. You get a blue effect into the shadows. See the before and the after. Okay, now this one, again I'm going to start off with the preset. Let's go back into our light and let's pump up the shadows, really bring out the detail in the foreground here. And then let's go back into our details, split toning, Let's add more of that orange into the highlights, and let's add blue into the shadows. Press done, click and hold. See the changes that we've made. Now when we go into the next image here, it's actually quite similar. We've got those dark shadows and we want to pull that information from them. So what we can do, let's pop back into this image, press your three dots and choose copy settings. Press the tick, slide to your next image, three dots again and paste settings. And now we've pasted all those settings, and again if we want to make any further adjustments we can do. Let's pull the shadows up even further on this image. Now if you scroll to your next image, so let's choose this one again, and this time if we want to apply those settings from the previous image, you can press this icon and it gives you an option to apply from previous photo, adjustments or all. Let's just put all on there and you can quickly apply all of those adjustments. So a few different ways there that you can apply all of the adjustments that you've made to your image. And finally, let's just show you how to save a version. So for this image, for instance, let's go into this icon, and now it says create a version. So you've got your original, current edits, press create version, give it a name. So this one was more purple. Let me call that purple to be really simple, and press done. And now that version is applied, and if you press on the versions, you can see we've got the purple and the original. Let's go back to the original. Let's add our sunset preset to that. Back into versions. Create a version, and we'll call that one orange. Press done and apply. And now when we go into our versions, you can see we've got orange, purple and original. And all you need to do is click on the image and apply it, and nothing is permanent. So whenever you want to undo those images, you can press the undo button and you can go right back to open. You can press on your versions and you can choose the version that you've saved. So there you have it guys. I hope that was useful for you. If it was, give me the thumbs up. It really is appreciated and it does help me to grow the channel. If you'd like to see more tutorials just like this, press the subscribe. I'm doing these every single week. Thanks once more for watching guys, really appreciate it, and I hope to see you next time.